We're talking about myths and beliefs about safety. And hopefully this will reinforce some of the messages that we provided earlier about company culture, about the importance of leadership. But the first piece, the first myth is that, you can't coach stupid. That is, there are people in our organization that are just error prone and there's nothing we can do about it. So I'm calling that a myth, okay? Now, like most myths, in fact, maybe you could say all of them. I don't know that I've studied them all, but every one that I know about, there's a grain of truth in there, right? Myths begin by trying to understand phenomenon that we don't really understand very well, but we've created kind of a saga about, a story about, okay? So, what's the truth in this statement? Well, it turns out that science, medical science, has figured out that, I don't know, maybe you're going to say duh, but yeah, there are people that are error prone. I mean, that's actually true. This guy, Dr. Charles Swanek, this guy investigated ACL injuries, okay, in professional sports. Okay, I think he did another paper on collegiate sports to kind of verify, but point is, he studied ACL injuries, and those are like terminating injuries. They typically end a person's career, so they're a big deal, right? So he studied when those things happened or not, and who they happened to, and he evaluated the people to whom those injuries occurred, and he found out that there are many ACL injuries that are not caused by anything but somebody being clumsy, basically tripping over their own feet or whatever, not caused by excessive stress to that joint in some contact mode. So you can read the paper. I got the reference there. I looked it up. Some of it's medical language I didn't quite understand, but the conclusion is really clear. There's a good percentage of ACL injuries that are just caused by people who are not very coordinated. Even though they're in professional sports, they're really good at some things, but they're not very coordinated, or they have slower reaction time, or they're not very good at visual memory. And so he correlated those kind of things, and he found out, yeah, I can kind of predict who's going to have injuries like this based on tests beforehand. Kind of interesting. I don't know what professional sports people are doing with that information, but it's kind of proven to me that, yeah, there are some people that are more adept, more physically intuitive, less likely to fall down, trip, hit themselves in the nose with a hammer, whatever. Okay, that's the truth, okay? But it's not true that there's nothing you can do about it. So the myth is you can't coach stupid. Well, I'm sorry, but unless you plan on providing pre-employment interviews and getting the equal employment opportunity organizations in government to accept you doing screening practices and rejecting for employment people that you think might be clumsy, you're stuck with those people. But the good news is there's things you can do to help people in those environments. And there's a list of them up here. So on the management side, we can recognize that all humans are going to make mistakes. They're going to forget things. They're going to be clumsy sometimes. They're going to be distracted sometimes. They're going to space out sometimes. And so we can design systems and equipment to minimize the need for such close diligence and attention, as an example. I mean, why wouldn't we? We're a member of that human group, so we would like to work at places where we don't have to hold our hands exactly right in order not to get hurt, at least for 8 hours in a row. We can guard equipment and tools better. We can provide clear guidance and instruction. If you want to, Making sure people can see, and by the way, if you think that owning an Indiana driver's license is any protection at all, you just need to give that up right now. You realize you can drive a semi-trailer in Indiana with one eye blind and the other eye only 20/40? I'm sorry, you can. Those big rigs are dangerous, okay? But in Indiana, you can get a CDL with those visual qualifications. I wouldn't want that guy inspecting. And I'm certainly expecting that person, even though he's got possession of an Indiana driver's license, he might have be prone to have more injuries if you can't see that well. Okay? So maybe there's some things we can do pre-employment, and then we can put people in the right places, linked to their skills and abilities and their error proneness. Supervisors are responsible for putting people in the places where they belong with the associated competence. And yes, it's a hard day, and we're going to all complain about the labor pool and who comes in the door and how little there are people available that are good guys. But everybody's facing the same problem, and it's the business we decided to be in, right? It's how we make our money, so we need to take care of the people that are trying to make money on the same industry we are. You've got those lists. I'm not going to read them to you. Second myth. Safety programs cost more than they're worth. I hope that by this time, especially at the morning session, early morning session, where we talked about all the costs associated with safety incidents, that we have removed any doubt that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. But, just so you know, it is true, of course, that safety programs, decent safety programs, cost some money. You want to have a qualified safety guy? Yeah, he's the market value of a properly trained, certified safety guy is a pretty good price. And if you've got a big organization, you probably want more than one. So yeah, and making sure people have the stuff they need, protection-wise, education, just doing the business of a formal management safety program like auditing costs money. I'm not going to dispute that. The question is spending that money, is that a decent investment? So, I'm not a professional economist, but there are people that study such things. And the American Society for Safety Engineers, which probably has a somewhat biased perspective, they're in the market for safety engineering, right? But, they indicate a relatively conservative payback of $1 invested in safety programs give a $3 return on prevention. That's documented. OSHA has a whole list of professional papers on the subject of return on investment for safety programs. Literally, they have a whole page with hot links to each one. And I opened all them up and looked at them, and they cite studies that run from $2 return on every dollar invested to $6 return on every dollar invested. So they're kind of in the same ballpark as ASSE, but, with potential upside. I looked online at various papers, and here's an example of a professional paper in the Journal of Safety Research, which is a peer-reviewed, highbrow paper. And they looked at 250 cases where ergonomic programs were installed. They measured the cost of putting those programs in and the long-term maintenance of those programs versus the savings, before and after. And they saw a nearly 10-to-1 improvement in cost by implementing ergonomic interventions, basically designing for improved ergonomics in high-risk workstations. And that's a base of 250 companies that instituted some kind of ergonomic intervention. 10-to-1 return. That's about the same level as American Society for Quality says investing $1 in prevention costs like process planning, supplier management, training, auditing, stuff you do to prevent problems. For every $1, ASQ says you save $10 in external and internal failure costs. Another reason why safety and quality guys like each other so much. I know it's difficult to sell insurance, but when you need it, it's really important. We are trying to do things to prevent costs, and prevention does pay for itself. Here's a whole pile of other papers that talk about return on investment. And, these are not small studies. And they all have well over a 1-to-1 reimbursement factor. There's a whole book you can buy, and it's not the only one. Go on Amazon and you can find more. But there's whole books on the subject of the manner in which you can recoup your investment in safety through reduced workman's comp costs and productivity, quality, all the indirect costs we talked about earlier. Okay, number 3 myth. Safety starts on the shop floor. In other words, the myth goes like this. The people on the floor got to want it before it's going to work. So, it's definitely true that safety, that's where it happens, right? We don't have a high recordable injury rate in the office like at the copy room, right? Unless there's that guy that likes to photograph his butt naked, and maybe that's ergonomically challenging. But, so yes, we have to deal with safety on the shop floor. And people got to wear their PPE, and they got to do the right things, and, that is where it's applied. But as I think we know from what we have talked about all day long, that's not where safety is initiated. Safety is a vision. Safety is a value of top management, which migrates through the organization and establishes an environment where people can do safe work. I was talking to a friend here at lunch who was formerly a cop. And, in his world, accidents happen. And we talked a little bit about that. Outside world, yeah, I think accidents do happen. I think stuff falls from the sky every now and then. I think there's weird things that happen. The difference between your factory and the outside world is you created the environment that your factory is in. Everything that goes on inside those 4 walls, that's your responsibility, buddy. You created an artificial environment where you invited people, induced them to come by paying them so that they could make you money. And it's your job to control everything that happens inside that facility. It is not a random environment. In fact, it's the opposite of random. Everything is supposed to be planned because you got to make these complicated things. Somebody threw stones at me by saying that I don't make parts that are very complicated because I only have 2 or 3 or 4 things that you add together to make them. You guys got 4,000. I'm with you, man. You got complicated stuff to make, and it's got to be just right. And there's, they got people at RVIA that just live codes and standards and all these rules, and it's complicated, and that's the job you picked. And if you want to make things right, you have to eliminate randomness in everything, because there's only one right way to make it, at least to make money at it. And so we have created the environment in which our people work, and therefore we're responsible for that, not the people that we invite in to live in our environment and make us money. I guess I would ask a question to try to highlight the fact that management has a great responsibility for safety by asking who, this time who. So when Ralph says he's not going to operate that machine without the guard in place, who decides whether that's okay or not? Who gets in that guy's face and say, you're going to do that because I'm paying you to do that and we got to get these trailers out? Or who says, you know, Ralph, we need to make sure that safety is number one. Let's take a look at that together. Tell me what's wrong. What's going on? Who decides how that person is treated at that moment? That's your culture, man. Jose complains that his back is stiff and he can't keep up. Who decides how to treat that situation? It's not the operator who decides. It's the supervisor and his boss's boss who either rewards a certain behavior or kills it off because they complain or they think you're slowing things down or whatever it is. Who decides when somebody has an idea that he wants to try out because it might make the job easier, faster, less prone to backaches? Does he get blown off? Or does he get an opportunity to try it out? Who decides? Who decides how that person is treated? Carmen sees a supervisor without his safety glasses on. Ooh, that's a toughie. What does Carmen do? She shut up because she knows that if she says something, she's going to get whacked. Maybe somebody's going to treat her bad. Or does she have the ability, the trust, the openness, the sense of security, the confidence in that culture that she can say something to the supervisor and say, hey, just last week you were telling us all we got to wear our safety glasses. You forgot yours, man. And the guy said, you know, you're absolutely right. I'm going to go get them. Thanks. That's what ought to happen. But does it happen? That's your culture. That's your management. Amy says her gloves don't fit. Live with it. Go get some at home if you want. You got those really small hands? You know, we're not going to provide that. Sorry. Who decides how Amy gets treated in that situation? Is this uncomfortable? I hope it is. It's uncomfortable for me because how did I make these things up? You know, these are stuff in my real life. But this is what makes safety happen. It's the touch point between management and the guys on the floor who are just trying to get along. You know? Miguel slips on an icy patch in the parking lot, and the supervisor hears about it. What happens next? By the way, the parking lot is part of your environment that you have to be responsible for. And when somebody slips and falls and has to go to the doctor out in your parking lot, that's actually recordable, right? George asks, how come Johnny fell yesterday? Hidden question. What are you doing about it? Do you care? How do we respond to that? Oh, management's looking into it. Okay. Susie shows up wearing a hoodie with these long ties. Do we help her make sure she doesn't have that? We enforce the dress code for safety? I hope we do. Just some questions that are uncomfortable. Sorry. That's part of my job. I'm used to it. My whole body is just covered with calluses because I've been in quality for 40 years. So I can deliver bad news and not worry about it. But really, I'm doing this for a reason. And the reason is that it's important to deal with these kinds of small circumstances because these will either communicate to your employees that you are talking and walking in the same direction or that you're not. And they're small interactions, and maybe not too many people will hear about them. But the cumulative effect of these interactions is to either deny the truth that you put people first, or convince people that they work at a place where people are cared for and that management can be trusted. Do we have regular conversations about safety? Even one-on-one conversations, not line meetings where people are reading from a card, but actual personal conversations where it looks like the supervisor actually cares about the human being he's talking to. Do we act on employee ideas? These are questions that arise from those interactions we just talked about. Good questions to ask ourselves. Again, it's painful to look in the mirror. It was not comfortable for us to look at all those statistics. Statistics are numbers, and they're a little bit easy to ignore even if they're big numbers. But unfortunately, the kind of scenarios that these questions cause us to think about, that is real life, every day, happening on the shop floor right now as we're talking in your factory. Are the messages consistent or not? Can it be said of your workplace? These are questions that we need to ask ourselves. And I hate to even read those questions for fear of being redundant, but this is where real life is. This is what all this talk has to finally work its way down to, is a changed interaction on the shop floor between supervisors who get it, who are running consistent with management, and are interacting with people that do the work every day so that they feel they can trust you, that you have their best interest at heart, and that you're not going to chew them out if something goes wrong. Wouldn't you like to work in a place like that? Wouldn't you preferentially choose to work at a place like that? Unfortunately, most job interviews, you can't figure out what the company culture is. It's so artificial. But if you could peek behind the curtain, that's the kind of place you'd want to work. Another myth, safety is the enemy of efficiency. Well, if efficiency is defined as doing it as fast as possible, safety is definitely the enemy of efficiency. But, like the little comic says, a shortcut can be the quickest way to get where you weren't going. A well-designed process ought to be the easiest way to do the job with the right quality and keep somebody safe. And those three things are not mutually contradictory. They are not. We may not know how to do it right now. We may not have thought of a way that solves that three-part problem, but it is not theoretically impossible. And in fact, I'll bet that if you benchmark enough people doing the same operations, you will find people that are doing it fast and with good quality and not hurting anybody. So we all know what it's like to run headlong and not think about what we're doing before we get it going. And that's not a recipe for success for either quality or safety. Safety's got to be planned into the process. It's got to be the right way to do the job. And the right way to do the job should be the way that requires the less arms and legs and physical capability of the human. And I know what I'm talking about. We're making wheels that are 20 and 21 inches in diameter. You know how stinking big them are now? Okay? And all the weight is at the face on the disc, right? And then the rim is kind of spindly. And so you got this big weight, it's off balanced, and you got to move them around. And that's just a crap job. And those stinking wheels, they got a little bitty scratch or a little bitty nick, I can't sell them. And handling damage is a big deal when you got this big monster thing. So we just got to eliminate moving things around when it's in a sensitive state. In fact, Before we cut all the metal off, when it's in an as-cast condition, it's even more heavy. So we've just had to go through and work very hard to eliminate manual handling of our parts because it's just not right. And happily, making it the best way, making it the most ergonomically friendly way is also the fastest and the most prone to keeping it without handling damage. And yeah, it costs some investment. But we got to do it. And it's the right thing to do to keep our people safe. So you want to build safety into the process. Unfortunately, I think what happens, and I talked to a couple people who are production managers, but you see this little cartoon? I mean, I made it up. I'm not a cartoonist by any stretch. But so here's a production engineer. And usually those guys are young, right? And he's designed a process because he's got a trailer that got to be made, and it's got this strange layout. And so he's designed this process, and he goes to the plant manager. Now, here's what you got to do. I designed this process, and it's got 3 pinch points, 2 40-pound lifts, 3 twisting motions, and a burn hazard. And by the way, I want you to do 40 an hour and, figure it out. Get your people to follow those rules and work with that piece of equipment. Well, that's just nuts. Processes are supposed to be designed, not dropped from above like aircraft bombs. Okay? They're supposed to have some interaction from the production department. You want me to make what? You want me to make it how? Most production guys actually care about their people. They have to live with them all the time. And they're usually pretty local. So, they got to face those people every day. So they have some degree of sympathy for what they got to go through. We need to give those people an opportunity to interact with process design so that their voice is heard so they can take care of their people. But unfortunately, what I think happens is we get all entranced by this new product design that we think is going to sell 1 million units. And it's got some weird layout and new cabinetry, and somebody figured out some other appliance, and it's got to get stuck over here. And then we try to figure out a way to make it. And we don't get a whole lot of input in it, and EHS doesn't have a role in that development and design process. And then we drop it on the production plant, and they struggle with new product development. And the first units have low pass-through rates at ADI. Does that sound familiar? That's not good for quality, and it's certainly not good for safety to have people figure all that crap out on the fly. And you should be proud of the job you do, putting units out that are wonderful. But you're doing it on the backs of your people who are excellent craftsmen and ingenious in ways of figuring out stuff to make you happy. Unfortunately, it's not always the safest way. We've got to increase our sensitivity to having processes where somebody's got to take a stinking router and bend at the waist and slam that baby down onto the laminating sheet and cut out holes all day long. I'm sorry, that's not ergonomically right. It's got all kinds of hazards associated with it, and we think that's normal. It's not. I don't know how many people got hurt doing that, and I don't want to know. But that's where we are. And is safety all about following the rules? No. Yes, we got to follow rules. Rules are good. Rules keep us out of trouble. If a stove is hot and my mom says don't touch the stove, that's a good thing, right? I don't like it at the time, but the consequences are bad, and she's just trying to protect me. So rules are good, and we need to communicate rules and procedures and policies and all that kind of stuff. And there's nothing wrong with those, and we got to have them. But that's not enough. It's not enough. There's a rule. How many of you follow that? Anybody go faster than 70 miles an hour on I-65? Yeah. I do. Are there consequences for not observing that rule? Probably. Is there enforcement? There is, but it's pretty sporadic. We feel we can beat it. And the enforcement occurs at a point much higher than 70, doesn't it? I read an article about a Texas state trooper who said, 8 you skate, 9 you're mine. And he was talking about is how many miles over the limit, you know. So he would give a ticket at 79 mile an hour, but at 78, he would let the guy fly. Well, people learn that, right? We all have accommodated ourselves, and we travel at a speed that is an economic decision based on how fast we want to get to where we're going, how likely it is that there's going to be enforcement, and we keep our speed at a speed that probably won't get us a ticket because there might be a guy just over the hill or off in an exit ramp that you can't see nailing you, right? You think the people on the floor do anything different? So how do we change what people think? We have to help them appreciate the consequences. Their understanding of what safety means has got to be in their heart and in their head, so it translates into their actions, so that you don't have to rely on sporadic enforcement, which is the best you're ever going to do with supervisors, right? You can't watch every person every time, all the time. So if you want people to follow the rules, actually follow the rules. They got to understand why the rules are there. The rules have to be right and fair and good and equally applied. So it's all about the culture that we build, not the rules. And it's very true. It's very true that you can't make a rule about every possible circumstance where somebody might have a risk associated with what they're deciding to do. Think about all the various things that your maintenance department do. You know, those guys got to be safe too. And we're probably not going to write procedures on how to fix all the various things that can be run by all the various equipment that you have on your facility. They just got to decide how to keep themselves safe. There's some general guidelines, particularly about electrical safety, lockout, tag out, all that good stuff. We need to have documentation, we need to have rules, but we need to have the right motivation and the culture so that when people don't know what to do, they ask. They don't put themselves in harm's way. Which is why we coach when people make decisions that put themselves at risk, not discipline. So myths were created in ignorance to explain what could not be then understood. And we still have these things today. And they're true about safety. Well, it's true that we have myths about safety, but they will keep us from achieving what we're all after, which is an injury-free workplace.